All right. What kind of sauce are we making today? Hollandaise. Hollandaise, thank you. One of our grand sauces. What are the main ingredients in a hollandaise?
Eggs.
Egg yolks.
Butter.
And melted butter.
Salt.
Yeah, and then a little salt, a little lemon.
Salt, pepper.
I am also using a reduction. Okay, this is a vinegar reduction. So this actually started off as about a half gallon of vinegar. I put some bay leaves in there, some black peppercorns, and just reduced it down until it was about here. And then I added water because honestly it was way too tangy. And the first sauce I made came out a little too tart. Still fine for a hollandaise. We want a hollandaise to be tart because you're putting it with a savory food. You're usually putting it with something that's very rich and salty, and that tartness balances out real nice. By itself, a real tart hollandaise may be a little too much for the palate, but that's what we're making today, and we're just going to try that. All right. Tomorrow, when you guys make yours, we'll have the French fries. They'll be salty, and the sauce should go pretty nice with them, I think. All right. So we need 2 egg yolks. So we're going to save our whites. So I'm going to crack and separate my eggs, put my yolks in one bowl. My whites I'm going to save in this bowl, or maybe we'll make something else. All right. You can use the shell to separate the eggs, but I end up always just using my hands, and then I'll have to wash my hands. No big deal. And just let that white slip between your fingers, fall off into the bowl, and then take your yolk and put it in the bowl that you're going to end up making your sauce in. Now when that happens, you got to be careful. Sort of shattered the egg. There's a good chance I can break that yolk, which I don't want to do, and I also don't want to get any shell into my egg whites. Carefully pour that into my hand. Separate the whites out. Yolk goes into the bowl. Now I'm going to wash my hands.
And that's a wrap.
Commercial break?
Commercial break. You're doing a commercial break.
Intermission.
What's going on? So we've got our water here is basically simmering. It's just about boiling. That's really where we want it. The steam from the water, this is called the double boiler. All right? The steam coming up from the water is going to heat the bottom of the bowl. The bowl then is going to cook the eggs while we whip them. All right? First we want to add just a little bit of our reduction. About that much. And we want to whip the eggs up and get some air into them first before we start actually cooking them. So I'm going to mix the two together, and we're going to try to incorporate some air into the eggs. And that's what's going to lighten up our sauce a little bit. You can see the little bubbles in there starting to form. All right, this is the most important part now. We're going to cook this while we whip it at the same time over the heat. What's important is that you control the temperature. If I do it just over this steaming water the entire time, I'm basically going to scramble the eggs. Once the eggs have scrambled, I can't make a sauce out of them. All right? What I'm trying to do is actually stretch out the proteins in the eggs, so then they'll accept the lipids in the butter when I pour it in. Okay? You're going to see the color's going to start to change. They're going to lighten up quite a bit, and this is going to thicken quite a bit. So I put it over my steam, and I start mixing. But I want to control it. I get the bottom of that bowl kind of hot, then I lift it up and keep going. Back on the heat for a little bit, and you already see there's a little bit of color change starting to take place. Lift it up. Make sure you're scraping the sides, because if you let too much egg sit at the side, that'll basically end up cooking too. It'll get hard, you'll get that in the sauce, and it won't be smooth. Really important that you're controlling the temperature. Remember, it's all in your hands. You don't have to change the temperature of the water, just get it off the heat every once in a while. See, the bottom of the bowl is pretty warm, so that's going to keep cooking the eggs even though it's not on over the steam. You can see this starting to lighten up, we're starting to thicken. Bottom of my bowl is still pretty hot, so I'm not going to put it over the heat again. These bowls are pretty thick, so they hold that heat for a while. We want to take this so it starts to ribbon and the eggs really come together. It's actually easier to do this with more eggs than just 2 eggs like I did, because you have a little bit more control. It doesn't lay out of the bowl quite as much. but for the purpose of not making way too much hollandaise, we're gonna make small batches. Makes it a little bit more complicated, but it will work. Now you see, when I'm whipping now, you're starting to see the bottom of the bowl as I whip through. Our eggs are almost to the right consistency when we can streak across and we see the bottom of the bowl. And you'll see we're kind of ribboning off. That's basically where we want them. I'm gonna give them a little bit more, take them to the right consistency to hold more butter. We basically want them to hold as much butter as we can get in there. The butter is what makes the sauce really rich. And that's about it. You've seen we're not a bright yellow anymore, we're a nice light pale yellow, and the eggs are ribboning off of the whisk. All right, I'm gonna set a towel up, make sort of like a little nest for the bowl. That's gonna help hold the bowl in place as I pour my clarified butter in. I've got my drawn butter here. All right, it's already melted. We don't have the water in the bottom. We've separated it off the top. I've taken the butter solids off the top also. A little bit of butter solids went in there. It really wouldn't hurt our hollandaise, but there's just no reason. They'll make it a little bit clumpy. Real important, particularly in the beginning, that you add the butter slow and get it incorporated, okay? You've got to keep it moving. If you stop, if I just poured the butter in there and then walked away and tried to mix it up, the sauce would probably break for sure. When the sauce breaks, it looks kind of like it does at the edge there, where the oil from the butter and the eggs are completely separate. Once the whole sauce is broken, there's absolutely no way to bring it back. It will not come back together again. I'm just going to keep adding butter. You see the butter, you would think it would make it real thin, but when we're emulsifying it like this, it basically gets thicker and thicker. You can see how much butter those eggs will actually hold. Keep scraping your sides down, moving that around. I think that'll take a little bit more. See how it's gotten real glossy from all the butter that's in there? We want our hollandaise to be pretty shiny. I think that's about what it'll take. It's like almost a mayonnaise consistency now from spinning it all together like that. See, it's pretty thick. You want a hollandaise to be pretty thick because you hold it at a temperature basically almost like room temperature. If you heat it up too much, if you tried to hold it at 135, eventually you'd break the sauce within a half hour. That being said, since we're holding it below, you know, a temperature range that's going to avoid bacterial growth, we only want to make enough hollandaise for like 2 hours worth of service. So you may actually in the night have to make hollandaise a couple times if you're actually doing it in a restaurant. Right? It's basically done. Okay. We're going to add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce to it, okay? That's optional. It's not necessary. But I like it just a little bit in there. It gives it a little bit of flavor. Mix that in. We're going to add a pinch of salt. And we're going to add a little squeeze of lemon juice that I am going to put through a strainer. Why am I putting it through a strainer?
No seeds.
Yeah, we don't want seeds in there. We don't want seeds in there. We want a nice smooth hollandaise sauce. Obviously, nobody wants to bite down on a lemon seed when they're eating. And that's it. That's your basic hollandaise. Okay, to this we could add different flavors to come up with something and see how it kind of ribbons off. That's basically what we want. One I made earlier came out quite a bit thicker. All right, we're good. We'll give it a try now. Stop.
Don't forget to like, comment, and
So you can stop
subscribe.
filming now.